Guys, it's finally happened. My beloved Switch that I love so dearly that I thought was perfect. The perfect machine. I found a problem with it. I thought it was perfect, but in fact it does have a few problems actually, but this one in particular I would consider a major problem. Although with my case it's not major, but for other people it may be. Alright, so a few of the nitpicks I have with the console is, well, the only one I can think of uh, is that the only way to fully turn it off is to hold the power button for 3 seconds, click power options, and then click turn off, which is kind of annoying, but that's a very minor thing, and that's not what this this video is about. This video is about bending because my Nintendo Switch is bent. However, it's very unnoticeable. Like I can show it off in the video here, and you're not really gonna notice it all that much unless I point it out. And even then, because of the limitations of this camera, you might not even see it. But it is slightly bent. If you hold it like this and you close one eye and you just kind of look straight down, you can see that there is a little bit of a bend right here. And I'm not worried about it just because the Switch still functions just fine. It powers on. Yeah, you can see everything works fine. If I were to swap over to my console preset and put it in the dock, you'll see that in a couple seconds here, because of the latency on my capture card, it will pop up on the screen. There we go. And you can see if I take my Joy-Cons, link them up just fine, everything still works. Everything works just as it should. If I were to take this out and pop the Joy-Cons on like this, you will see that everything works just fine. So I'm not worried about it because it doesn't affect the functionality of the Switch. Everything still works fine. But for people with OCD, that would be something that's very annoying. Um, and I have seen, because I did research on it, and I've seen cases where you have a very severe bend where it's very noticeable. Even in those cases, the Switch still works perfectly fine with no problems. Um, but my only guess as to why this happens, and I'd say it's a pretty, uh, oh, excuse me. I'd say this is the most likely cause of this. You can see the vent is right there. And everything that I've seen where somebody had a bent switch, it's right where that vent is. And I believe what's happening is because the outer chassis is a hardened plastic. That vent can sometimes get really hot as it shoots air out, and I think that heat is causing the plastic to warp a little bit. So it is a potential problem. Again, with mine, I'm going to try to see if you can actually see it on video. It's very minor bend on mine, so it's pretty unnoticeable, but it definitely is there. And again, I personally am not worried about it because everything still works perfectly fine. So long as it doesn't affect the functionality of the device, I honestly could care less. Um, However, some people might be extremely annoyed by that, which is why I wanted to make people aware of that problem. And also, if I can pull this up real quick, I've found a photo of someone else's Switch who has a bit more of a severe bend, what I would consider to be a severe bend. Mine is barely noticeable. But if I pull this up real quick, you'll see this one here. That is very noticeable. That is bent. And you'll see it bows out right where the vent is here. So, my theory is that that vent gets way too hot as the air blows out. That heat spreader gets a bit too hot, and it just causes the chassis to warp a little bit. Now, again, this doesn't affect the functionality of the Switch. The Switch will still work. Oh, my bad. Wrong preset here. The Switch will still work regardless. But that may be something that annoys some people. I know if someone with OCD would be very annoyed by that. Me personally, I don't care so long as it still works. But I did want to make this problem aware. I did want to let people know about this. And I'm interested to see if any of you out there who have a Switch have noticed any bends in your Switch. I'd say you're probably more likely to get a bend if you use the Switch for hours and hours at a time. I just play mine pretty casually, which is probably why mine is barely noticeable at all. The only reason I even noticed it to begin with is because I went to set it down on a table, and then I noticed there was like a little gap between the surface and the table, which there wouldn't be a gap if it was completely flat. So there you go. I just wanted to make people aware of this issue, and I'm sure Nintendo already knows about it. There have been leaks recently that they're working on a sort of hardware revision of the Switch that supposedly is going to have a bit more RAM, and I would imagine would probably fix this problem and probably fix the problem people are having with the dock as well. But we don't know much about that hardware revision, and we don't know when it's going to be coming out, but we do know that it exists. So I know Nintendo knows about this, and I'm not worried about it. So long as my Switch works, I don't care. Because at the end of the day, you know, I'm gonna spend a lot of time on this thing. So at the end of the day, it's gonna get a little dinged up here and there. Yeah, that's how you tell when it comes to handhelds and stuff like that. You know, which one's your favorite is whichever has the most like battle scars by the end of it. Same with guitars, really. I collect guitars, and it's always your favorite guitar that has the most dings and scratches is because it's the one you use the most. So I'm not worried about this little minor bit of cosmetic damage. I could easily fix it just by buying a new backing for the Switch and put it on there, because I believe it's just the backing that's bent. And I actually do plan to buy a new one because I want to buy a custom one to put on there. So we might make a video of that at a later date, but I did just want to let people know about this problem. So yeah, let me know in the comments. Do any of you who own a Switch have this problem with your Switch? And for any of y'all who don't own a Switch and was considering getting one, has this impacted your decision on whether or not to get one? in a negative way, because again, like, even with this in mind, I would still, if you have the money to spend and you want a gaming experience that's unrivaled by any other, console out there, I would still, even with its minor flaws here and there, I would still put my money on the Switch, because this thing here is fucking amazing. It may not be perfect, like I previously thought, but it's still a fantastic console, and I absolutely love this thing, and I have no regrets. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye, guys.